Welcome back everyone. So in this video, we will discuss the interaction design in practice, which we kept talking about in the previous videos. Introduction from their study of one software development company over 2 decades, partly in 2019, point out that many companies need to transition from only developing GUIs to taking the wider UX perspective, and that this transition has several pitfalls. Examples are not paying attention to the characteristics of UX compared to usability alone, and power struggles between different groups who want to be in control of UX practices. So, one of the most common issues with this practice is that some groups politicize the entire design process and want to be in control of this. Uh, Another one is not paying attention to the characteristics or the characteristics of the UX compared to usability alone. So instead of developing an actual GUI or function, we need to ask why are we really needing those function, right? Because too often there's many ways to solve an issue. That's where generating ideas in the design process comes, correct? Or there are many interfaces that could be used to solve an issue. Other chapters of this book may have given the impression that the designers create their designs with little or no help from anyone except stakeholders and immediate colleagues. But in practice, user experience designers draw on a range of support. Four main areas of support that impact the job of UX designers are described in this chapter. First, working with software and product development teams, operating an agile model of development. So we introduced this in the previous video, has led to technique and process adaptation, resulting in agile UX approaches. Reusing existing designs and concepts is valuable and time-saving. Interaction design and UX design patterns provide a blueprint for successful design, utilizing previous work and saving time by avoiding reinventing the wheel. Third, reusable components from screen widgets and source code libraries to full systems, and from motors and sensors to complete robots can be modified and integrated to generate prototypes or full products. Design patterns embody an interaction idea, while reusable components provide implemented chunks or of code or widgets. So reusable components, it provides chunks of codes or a widget. Design patterns embody an interaction idea. So it's like an idea or one point of interaction with the user, kind of like a scenario. So that's a pattern. There is a wide range of tools and development environments available to support design in developing visual designs, wireframes, interface sketches, interactive prototypes, and more. So there's an outside tools actually will also help the design other than the stakeholder, which we're gonna discuss later. Different example of wireframe, such as Miro, look back, which we will discuss later, etc. So it's a time saving to use a pattern as well. Here, so we were gonna discuss the difference of getting a help from a pattern or from a known successful scenario, and then getting a help from hosts of different sources or a combination of sources that could be thought of that form an actual book, because for a pattern could be similar or could be thought of as similar to a sentence, wherein there is a meaning, but it's not an actual book, or it doesn't form a paragraph that will turn to a book. While a design language, which we will discuss later, like a Bootstrap, form a complete language that allows us to use that in different ways depending on our context. And it's much broader, right? It's not like a simple one sentence that is not adaptable. A language is adaptable because you can use one sentence, sometimes one paragraph, to communicate your meaning. But the structure, there should be a grammar, there should be vocabulary, the punctuation, etc. that forms it. So why is UX so difficult? Let's watch this. All right. So, yeah, that covers a lot of things that we will gonna discuss in these videos, in which like UX do a lot, or UX designer do a lot of things that is developer could not do. So there's like a misunderstanding on what the developer and the UX actually are doing. So we will gonna clarify that in the next few moments. So technical depth in UX. So it addressed technical depth, a discipline. Just a moment. Oh my god. Address a technical depth, a discipline of refactoring is needed that is correcting any programmatic trade-offs after the immediate pressure has receded. Significant difficulties arise if these trade-offs are not identified, understood, and corrected in a timely manner. So there's also technical or UX depth. If it's not uh, identified, understood, and corrected in a timely manner, it is a significant trade-off. So UX depth is created much like technical depth in the sense that trade-offs are made for the needs of the project. Two interrelated situations can lead to a significant UX debt that is then extremely costly to correct. If an organization did not in the past understand the value of good user experience design and products, or software systems with poor user experience persist, this can be particularly prevalent for internal systems and products where the drive for a good user experience is less acute than for externally marketed products that face more competition from other providers. So it's prevalent for internal systems where people are seen as a techie that doesn't need that much UI. So they can like pretend that these people could like just research the issue. So for some, an entire administrative department for website, that could be easily like applied to this because they may not think that UX is important for their product because there's a lot of motivation where people does want to keep their jobs, so they don't want to pretend that it's easy like with a good UX design. For example, some teams actually were paid doing like a bullshit jobs, maintaining this like database software that is not actually that hard when you have a good UI. It's like an AWS as well. AWS is actually easy if it has a good UI, but unfortunately it's not. So that's what keeping them and UX that are created this way. If an organization has a large portfolios of product, each of which was developed independently, this can be the result of acquisitions and mergers of companies, each with their own UX brand, leading to a proliferation of designers. So here, they explained UX that. So let's watch. So yeah, there you go. If you have like customer support in your company, you basically have a UX that. So it's a user issue, interface issue that has not been fixed. So common issues with this is that the development and the UX designer and the customer and the business has different motivations. The developer wants to ship as soon as possible because they were incentivized to do that, while UX was paid to make the UX clean or solve that user issue. Another thing is that they recommend 1 to 2 UX design or issues, and then putting all the UX debt in a backlog that could be tackled based on its priorities, whether it's for short-term or long-term goals, whether it's refactoring or just fixing small bugs. So it's still the balance always, which depends also in this highly complex and complex adaptive world. Agile UX. So in the early days of Agile software development becoming popular, UX designers were concerned about the impact that it would have on their own work. Sharp in 2006, particularly because of Agile's short iterations, which are typically between 1 and 4 weeks long. Different names are used to refer to an iteration, the most common being sprint, time box, and cycle. The potential danger for good user experience is that short iterations rush UX activities and that agility is used as an excuse for poor user experience. Advantages of an agile approach have also been recognized. However, even though the process and practice theme is understood, it doesn't necessarily make it easy in practice. For example, Joel Ma in 2022 find that startup with less than 2 years experience of Agile UX struggled to combine practices and suggest that startup adapt lightweight UX practices initially, such as lightweight usability testing based on Group 2014. A suitable balance is needed that preserves both the research and reflection needed for good UX design, as well as rapid iterations that incorporate feedback and allow technical alternatives to be tested. At the beginning of the project, these ethics will be prioritized and the central goal of the product to identify potential vacations will be the top priority. This will then initially be the focus of development activities to allow people to choose a vacation. Epic 4. Supporting the travel agent to update travel details will also need to be implemented. Otherwise, travel details will be out of date. So this is also likely to be prioritized. So here, you are prioritizing UX debt to be solved or UX problem to be solved, while also considering that other requirements may not be as important during this sprint. Elaborating the other two areas will be postponed until after a product that allows people to choose a vacation has been delivered. Indeed, once this product is delivered, it may be decided that offering help for vaccination and visas does not result in sufficient business value for it to be included at all. In this case, referring people to other more authoritative sources of information may be preferable. So this 3 and 4, as a group traveler, I want to know the vacations required to visit the chosen destination so that vaccinations can be arranged for everyone in the group in plenty of time. As a travel agent, I want up-to-date information displayed so that my clients receive accurate information. So 3 and 4 was not needed depending on the results or the outcomes of the first two apply UX resolution. For example, a UX designer and engineer may collaborate jointly on a design task. Engineers may attend user research sessions, and UX designers may join the daily team meetings called stand-ups. So this agile was usually being done before the development. So a user may actually, or a developer may actually be included in that user research or that interviews, and then a UX designers may be in the daily meeting. So this is how UX applied Agile methodology. In particular, Agile UX requires attention to three practices, each of which is elaborated in the following sections. What user research to conduct, how much and when, how to align UX design and Agile working practices, what documentation to produce, how much and when. So these are the three questions you would ask: how to balance in the user research, the short term and the long term, how much and when are we going to do it, how to align UX design and Agile, what documentation to produce, how much documentation and when and for whom. The user research. The term user research, sometimes called discovery research, refers to the program of data gathering and analysis activities conducted to characterize potential users, their tasks, and the context of use. User research is typically done before product development begins, but it is equally valuable throughout. In an agile project, data gathering methods that rely on a significant elapsed period of time, such as ethnography, do not fit within agile's short iteration. So technical development needs to be independent of any studies using that approach. So the point here is that for ethnography research, it does not fit for agile's development practices. Additional point here is that the user research could also be done in the middle of the cycle. So again, it comes back to the design process in which no step actually is fixed. So you have to like determine on your own context, which makes it complicated because you actually need to reflect, to think critically, to generate ideas and ways, and then thinking about the best possible resolution based on the pros and cons. So Bob Thomas in 2021 suggests using lean user research approaches which hints on involving technical and design members of the team, taking part in usability tests and collecting their observations on sticky notes which can be discussed and summarized in a matter of hours and days rather than weeks. So lean user research, it involves the technical and design members in usability testing, which we will discuss later. It's kind of like the test on the usability with the user. So one approach is for user research to be conducted before the project begins. The initial period is called iteration 0, and it's used to achieve a range of upfront activities including software architecture design as well as user research. If cycle 0 is the same length as other cycles, that time can still be constrained depending on the research work to be done. Don Norman in 2006 suggested the user research be done before the project is announced. He argues that it is better to be on the team that decides which project will be done at all, hence avoiding the constraints caused by limited time box. So, Don Normal actually suggests that user research be done before the project is announced because again, the solution that is applied in the wrong problem is will fail no matter how good the solution is. So now and then this point talks about how one approach of a user research is that the initial period is often called iteration 0, and it designed to achieve a range of upfront activities including the software architecture or system design as well as user research. So two things, you're dealing with two things: the site what do you call this, site plan, where the developers see the web page or the diagram, or the system design or system architecture, and then a user research for you to get an overview of how this system actually works. An alternative approach to conducting user research for each project is to have an ongoing program of user research that revises and refines a company's knowledge of their users over a longer time span. In this case, the specific data gathering and analysis needed for one project would be conducted during iteration 0, but done in the context of a wider understanding of users and their goals. For example, both Microsoft and Google recruit people to take part in a range of user research activities, the result of which are used to inform product development. So, alternative approach is to actually have an ongoing user research and then use that in to inform the product development. So let's skip a little bit in this. Here is the cycle or the iteration that are discussing iteration 0. You run and gather customer data. Cycle 1, implement how UI cost and then futures, and then implement design, and then implement design again, and then design or cycle 2, gather customer data, then test cycle code using gather customers data, or cycle 2 code uh, gather customer data as well. So the usability, let's see, where's the usability here? Hmm. Let's skip this. We shall watch the usability because that is how it was described using the Lean Agile. Let's just skip that for now. Just delete this because doesn't actually show the video. So here we stop here. Characterizing car drives and the electric during experience would be appropriate user research before iterative development begins. Although many people drive, the driving experience is different depending on the car itself and according to the individual's capabilities and experiences. Collecting and analyzing suitable data to inform the product's development is likely to take longer than the time box constraints would allow. Such user research could develop a set of personas, maybe one set for each class of car, and a deeper understanding of the electric driving experience. So here, we discussed the previous experiments we have done. So, characterizing car for this type of experiments, characterizing car or doing a user research is appropriate. So collecting that data to inform product development is likely to take longer than the time box constraints of Agile. Car performance and handling is constantly evolving, however, and so understanding of the driving experience would benefit from ongoing research. So it will also benefit from ongoing research because the environment in which those product changes as well. So it's not like a fixed science. Car performance and handling is constantly evolving. However, and so an understanding of the driving experience would benefit from ongoing research. Just like with design and development work, we need to represent research efforts on our Agile backlog. So just like with design and development work, we need to represent those research that we have done in Agile backlog to avoid like doing the same thing. So documentation, the importance of this is that it allows us to provide an external memory When research efforts aren't reflected on the backlog, they go unnoticed and are inevitably deprioritized. Out of sight, out of mind. For this example, imagine you want to conduct usability testing with 6 participants to learn about how users will or won't use keyboard shortcuts in your application. To complete this study, you'll need to complete the following tasks. Recruit and schedule each participant, conduct the session, analyze the data, present findings to stakeholders. So as you can see, there's also presentation, and then the analysis, and then the schedule of the session for this user testing. That's why it takes longer than this short iterative agile process. So here to do recruit, conduct, and then while you're doing, you have this kind of like a card-based board or card. It's important to accept and communicate that this research effort will remain open across multiple sprints. This idea is difficult for some stakeholders to grasp, so remind them that research efforts deliver outcomes, not outputs. That is, they deliver goals and needs, not features. So there are many ways to resolve an issue. So you're solving goals and needs, not you're not deploying or delivering features, because that's just one way to solve the people's goals and needs. In the sprint review, you can talk about how the research is going, memorable quotes you might have heard so far, and what is coming up next. So here, since this, they recommend 1 to 2 UX depth to be solved. Here, you want to provide memorable quotes that you have heard from the user and what is upcoming next based on your research, and then or based on the things that you put on the backlog. This approach will reinforce the idea that research is consistently happening and will continue to build buy-in. So it's kind of like a political like opinion, it could be, but UX is important, though people have different like opinions. That's the importance of triangulation. So UX is important. It's not political because it's actually about solving users' expectation. After the research is complete, you'll likely end up with a list of bug fixes, UX depth, potential new features, and opportunities for future research. These should all be funneled back into your backlog, either as tasks on existing backlog items, bugs to fix, or new backlogs. So here you create a to-do again, and then you made a done checklist. Bring up these list items after your presentation of research findings at the sprint review so it can be prioritized and added to the backlog immediately. Since your stakeholders are already present at the sprint review, you won't need to ask them to attend yet another meeting. So since they're already present in that, the added benefit is you don't need to schedule another meeting to present those findings, since it's already included in the sprint. Research provides value to them in the form of learnings rather than tangible artifacts. Learnings from your research will inform upcoming features, build out requirements and acceptance criteria, and help you understand your users. These are all things that move the team forward and provide value. So just because it's an physical artifacts that was not delivered, it's just a software of learnings, things that you have ongoingly learned from user, does not mean that it does not provide the company or it does not move the company forward. Lean UX, adopted from Gotthelf and Seiden in 2021. Lean UX is based on tight iterations of build, measure, learn, a concept central to the Lean startup idea, which in turn was inspired by the Lean manufacturing process from Japan. It emphasizes waste reduction or cleaning, the importance of experimentation to learn, and the need to articulate outcomes, assumption, and hypothesis about planned project. So kind of like making clear the requirements, moving the focus from outputs, for example, a new smartphone app, to outcomes, for example, more commercial activity through mobile channels. So you're thinking about the desire or the wants and needs instead of the actual method to get that wants or needs. Clarifies the aims of the project and provide metrics for defining success. An MVP is the smallest product that can be built that allows assumptions to be tested by giving it to a group of people and seeing what happens. Experimentation and the evidence collected based on actual use of the product, and this allows the team to learn something. So, it allows the team to learn something for this small product that was given to a group of people and seeing what happens. To test this assumption, they spent half a day designing and coding a sign-up form on their website and collected evidence in the form of the number of sign-ups received. This form was an MVP that allowed them to collect evidence to support or refute their assumption. That is, that a monthly newsletter would be attractive to their customers. Having collected enough data, they plan to continue their experiments with further MVPs that experimented with formats and content for the new newsletter. So they collected user data from that experiment, which then helped their subsequent experiments. In the latest version of Lean UX, Gothelf promote the use of Lean UX Canvas for organizing a Lean UX projects. One transition through the Canvas to section 1 to 8 is equivalent to one build, measure, learn, loop. So if Agile has a sprint, here you have one build, measure, learn, loop. The Canvas layout is shown in figure 13.1 and the titles and questions are replicated here in the order that they should be conducted. Business problem. What business have you identified that needs help? Business outcome. Changes in customer behavior. What changes in customer behavior will indicate you have solved a real problem in a way that adds value to your customers. So, is there any changes in behavior that you solve that indicate that you solve a real problem in the way that adds value or in a way that makes it cheaper or things that actually provide to the customer instead of like taking away from them? Does they actually save money from this? User and customers. What types of user and customers should you focus on first? User benefits. What are the goals your users are trying to achieve? What is motivating them to seek out your solution? Solution ideas. These product feature or enhancement ideas that help your target audience achieve the benefits they're seeing. Hypothesis. Combine the assumption from 2, 3, 4, and 5 into the following hypothesis statement. We believe that business outcome will achieve if user attains benefit with this feature. What's the most important thing we need to learn first? For each hypothesis, identify the riskiest assumption. This is assumption that will cause the entire idea to fail if it's working. What's the least amount of work we need to do to learn the next most important thing? The brainstorm type of experiments you can run to learn whether your riskiest assumption is true or false. So here's the another representation of that in square blocks. So I will provide just a moment. So it's kind of related in the user requirements part of our chapter before, which we're not actually able to discuss. So this called form 3-part. So traditional need statements have 3 components. First, a user. Second, a need and a goal. So you have this noun, but then a need that or a goal that this noun wants to accomplish, or verb. Sorry, a need and a goal. So a need and a goal could be formed as a verb. These are then combined following the patterns a user needs in order to accomplish a goal. So kind of like that, right? So Yeah, let's watch this video on how to use the UX canvas with Jeff. So it's a 15 minutes video, so I don't think we're gonna finish this, but so yeah, I think it's just an explanation. We're not gonna finish that. It's a 15-minute video. So fourth point, Janet in 2022 discussed the impact on creativity of fast design thinking, particularly in the context of hackathons. So they pointed out that the need to meet strict deadlines has been found to be positive for focus idea generation. It also can reduce creativity. So, based on Amabel research in 2002, while the role of reflection in design has been recognized for many years, the impact of design decision making under pressure is less well understood. The agile movement is here to stay, but the importance of taking time to reflect and think when necessary and not rushing to make decisions remains. The dilemma here is finding the right balance between rapid feedback to identify good solutions that work and providing the time to stop and reflect. Let's just watch this. Let's fast forward. I think there you go. So yeah, that's we basically discussed most of that. So we're gonna move on aligning with work practices. So there's therefore a tendency for designers to develop complete UX designs at the beginning of a project to ensure a coherent design throughout. In agile terms, this is referred to as big design upfront or BDUF, and this is an anathema to agile working. Agile development emphasizes regular delivery of working software through evolutionary development and the elaboration of requirements as implementation proceeds. In this context, BDUF leads to practical problems since reprioritization means that interaction elements, features, workflows, and options may no longer be needed or may require redesigning. To avoid unnecessary work on detailed designs, UX design activities need to be conducted alongside and around agile iterations. The challenge is how to organize this so that a good user experience is achieved while maintaining the product vision. So here, cycle 0 and its relationship to its later cycles, which is this. Some general data about customers and their behaviors may have been collected before cycle 0, but the vision and overall design is completed for the current project by the end of cycle 0. The work required will depend on the nature of the product, whether it's a new version of an existing product, a new product, or a completely new experience. Cycle 0 can also be longer than other cycles to accommodate differing needs. But producing pixel-perfect designs of the product before evolutionary development start is not the aim for cycle 0. So you're not creating like an actual prototype or pixel-perfect. You're just trying to make sure that you're solving the right problem. Cycle 1 usually involves technical depth set up activities in the developer track, which allows the user UX designer to get started on the design and user activities for cycle 2. For subsequent cycles, the team gets into a rhythm of design and user activities in cycle n-1 and corresponding technical activity in cycle n. First, no design time was wasted on features and that would not be implemented. Second, usability testing. First, there's no design time wasted on features that was not be implemented, that will not be implemented. So you're trying to be conscious on every decision so that there's no waste time. So even like a productive thing that might seem productive because you're able to generate features could be a mistake here because you're not using the right cognitive limited cognitive load at the right task. Second, usability testing for one set of features and contextual inquiry for the next set could be done on the same customer visit, thus saving time. So, a usability testing for one set of features and then a contextual inquiry for the next set could be done on the same customer visit. So for like one customer journey, it can be done first a usability testing and then contextual inquiry. Thus, it saves time. Third, the interaction designers receive timely feedback from all sides, both users and developers. More importantly, they have some time to react to the feedback because of the agile way of working. For example, the schedule could be changed if something was going to take longer to develop than first thought, or a feature could be dropped if it became apparent from the users that something else had higher priority. So feature that was developed could be dropped using this cycle method. In fact, these two tracks align to the double diamond process introduced in chapter 2, where the design track focuses on discovery. So here, and the developer track focuses on delivery. Discovery helps to understand pain points and designs move to delivery once they have been solved. Example activities in discovery are stakeholders interviews, user research to understand user issues, creating personas, and story mapping to prioritize features. Since its introduction in early 2000, this approach has been adopted in many situations and evolved so that the two tracks are not as tightly coupled as figure 13.2. So, since 2000, it was adopted in range of different tracks. So that's not included here. Figure 13 here, so it's another example of this cycle. Here you have discovery or learning velocity, opportunities, ideas, problems to solve. So you're thinking about the problems. Here development velocity, quality, shippable, etc. So potentially shippable software, predictable, high quality, shippable software. So actually shippable software, you have potential, but the actual ship is different. And then release, and then you measure, and then you learn. So after you release, you don't just release, you also measure how effective that is using evaluation, which we will discuss in the next video. Lean UX produces an MVP to test Assume by releasing it to the market as a finished product and collecting evidence of people's reactions. So, a Lean UX provide a finished product and you collect a people's emotions or reactions. These are thoughts. This is then used to evolve subsequent products based on the results of this experimentation. In this sense, Lean UX is a form of evolutionary development. It has similarities with evolutionary prototyping. However, not all the MVPs developed to test assumptions may be incorporated into the final product, just the result of the experiment. Agile UX is an umbrella term for all the efforts that focuses on integrating UX design with agile development. Agile software development is an evolutionary approach to development and hence Agile UX is also evolutionary. Additionally, Agile UX projects can employ prototyping to answer questions and test ideas as described in chapter 12. So those are different types of Agile UX. You have like a cycle iterations, aligning work practices, and then you also have lean UX, and then user research. So those are the vocabulary for uh, Agile UX. So documentation, the most common way for UX designer to capture and communicate their design has been through documentation. For instance, user research results and resulting personas, detailed interface sketches, and wireframes. Agile development encourage only minimal documentation so that more time can be spent on design, thus producing value to the stakeholders via working product. Documentation is useful for many purposes, including for legal reasons and maintenance tasks, and where abstractions or tricky design decisions need to be captured. Some documentation is hence desirable in most projects, and minimal documentation does not mean no documentation. A key principle in Agile UX, though, is that documentation should not replace communication and collaboration. A number of guidelines have been suggested to help in Agile projects to identify appropriate level of documentation. For example, the set of questions is commonly asked. How much time do you spend on documentation? If possible, decrease the amount of time spent on documentation and increase design time. Who uses documentation? What is the minimum that readers need from the documentation? Try to aim for just barely good enough documentation. That doesn't mean documentation of poor quality, but just enough to fulfill its purpose. How efficient is your sign-off process? How much time is spent waiting for documentation to be approved? What impact does this have on the project? What evidence is there of a document duplication? Are different parts of the business documents the same things? If documentation is only for the purpose of documentation or communication or product development, how polished does it need to be? Perhaps finding better ways to communicate would be more effective. The Discipline Agile approach in 2022 suggests a formula for gauging the effectiveness of a document. Graph: C, the percentage of content that is correct. R, the chance the document will be read. U, the chance that content will be understood. F, the chance that advice will be followed. T, the chance that advice will be trusted. Who is the audience? The answer to this question should drive the level of detail included in the documentation. What information is prioritized and how much where it is communicated. So, how do you prioritize the information? What graphs do you use? Depends on the audience. So, you need to know or to be great in this user research or audience research. Choosing the level of information granularity that is right for the audience will prevent wasted effort and make the information easily digestible. Another useful thing to remember is the the level of granularity of this data, such as conversation analysis, score analysis. So the representation or the detail of the representation also needs to be considered based on different user or audience. What's the purpose? Is the documentation meant to provide background context, evidence, or rationale? Is it to help the team remember something later? Is it to report progress? Understanding why the documentation is needed in the first place will help you see which details to include. So what's the purpose? What's the one big point? Is the documentation meant to provide background context, evidence, or rationale? Or is it to help the team members remember something later, right? So is it to report progress, understanding this why or these details or these questions, or I would say like qualitative questions that may provide the actual need rather than the actual features that was developed, which we discussed earlier. Quality over quantity, less is more. Don't document every single detail or meeting, but just enough to clarify intent or direction. Provide a recap, justify a decision, or outline how something should work. It's iterative and ongoing. Don't wait until the last minute to document details. Do it along the way as you're researching and designing to challenge your own biases and rationale. Keep your project manageable and produce better outcomes. Lightweight documentation provides context, creates shared understanding, and gives the team something to refer back to when questions arise. For this type of documentation, include a plan what you will do. Keep it short. Use a one-page bulleted plan or summary. Communicate how whatever you will do will impact the team. Outline who's the responsible for objectives or artifacts. Include dates to time box input and the effort. When something changes, so these are the type of documentation where you would consider or you will do this lightweight documentation when so it when something or when question arises, and then when something changes. Share changes incrementally as you work. Focus only on the essential. Use existing tools and documents to add details, like for design solutions, design systems, wireframes with annotations, Slack channels, Jira or Confluence, and other shared documents or code repositories. Outline who's responsible for next steps, action items, and final decisions. Include dates to time box decision making and subsequent effort. So kind of like the same principle, outline who's responsible and include the dates, because you kind of like provide the sequence of actions for this noun or people who do it. And here you added an existing documents or tools, which we discussed how it was also included in the previous concepts. Give it a catchy and noticeable name such as UX Feedback Friday so people look forward to receiving it each week. Keep the details light and focus on the metrics that your business and team care about. Include any positive and negative qualitative feedback the team should know as well. So here's an example for that. Retrieve quantitative data from analytics or business intelligence platforms, and recap qualitative insights from recent user research or feedback shared on platforms where Net Promoter or customer satisfaction scores are tracked. Group feedback into key themes and share the most pressing pieces. So you want to get a qualitative feedback or insights from user research, and you want a quantitative feedback from analytics. So here, group you want to group feedback into key themes such as team or product name, the date range or time frame the data reflects, progress toward quantitative metrics, positive qualitative feedback or behavior observational from user research, negative qualitative feedback or behavioral observation from user research, culture builders such as team happenings, trends, or tools to investigate. So here, an example. Good documentation leads to better, faster decision making, aids in presenting and justifying decisions, and reduces the cognitive load for the team by acting as a form of external memory. So this is the advantage or benefits of documentation. It allows the team to better and faster decision due to reduced cognitive load. It aids in representing and justify design decisions. Documentation is too often deprioritized in the name of agility or speed. Writing things down is a critical part of thinking through your UX work and prevents your team from making the same mistakes twice. Start documenting the right types of details now to move faster later. Designer patterns. I think we're gonna go back with this, but we'll just start a little bit. So one of the intentions of the patterns community is to create a vocabulary based on the names of the patterns, which designer can use to communicate with one another and with stakeholders. Another is to produce literature in the field that documents experience in a compelling form. So this pattern that things that you discover that is unique, that could be used in another places, could provide a literature for others for them to learn and use that when they encounter your context. Also, it also provide is a field that documents in a compelling way, in a way that's logical and structured, that allows you to communicate it to others and help them along the way. The idea of pattern was proposed by the architect Christopher Alexander, who described patterns in architecture in 1979. His hope was to capture the quality without a name that is recognizable in something when you know it's good. But what is a design pattern? One simple definition is that it is a solution to a problem in a context. That is, a pattern describes a problem, a solution, and where the solution has been found to work. Users of pattern can therefore not only see the problems and solution, but they can also understand the circumstances under which the idea has worked before and access a rationale for why it worked. So, users of this pattern also know why it worked. But a design pattern is also a solution to a problem in a context. A key characteristics of design pattern is that they are generative, that is, they can be instantiated or implemented in many different ways. Pattern collections, libraries, and galleries relevant to interaction design are commonly used in practice, and they usually focus on user interface elements like icons, common functions, and menus. Patterns are attractive to designers because they are tried and tested design solutions to common situations. They are often accompanied by code snippets available through open source repositories such as GitHub, and where this is the case, they can often be used with little modification. So, they are also accompanied by code snippets, like one seen on GitHub, where in this case, they can be used with often little modification. So here's an example: pagination and continuous scrolling, two patterns for accessing content. Both of these patterns are used for displaying content that is too large to load or show all at once. Continuous scrolling, also called infinite scrolling, is commonly used to display content as one long stream of information, like some email apps, web pages, and newspaper will do. The pagination pattern is used to display information in chunks. For example, e-commerce sites will often provide items one page at a time. The pagination pattern is used for context that can be ordered. Often the user is able to choose between different criteria in which to order, like date, size, price, etc., and split into discrete chunks. It provides control to the user, like through page numbers, and can communicate the extent of the content by displaying the number of pages. Having the content divided into pages provides the user with a natural break where they can decide whether to continue looking at the content. Unlike the continuous scrolling pattern, pagination takes the user attention away from the content to think about moving to the next page. This pattern can be instantiated in many different ways. See figure 13.5. Note that in three of the examples, the current page is indicated by a change in color by a box. Some have previous and next buttons. So here, you have a number and you have a long page. So here, let's watch best UX or design patterns, resources, and checklist. So it's 11 minutes. We're unlikely gonna be finishing this. So let's just skip. So there, she gave an example of how to design a mobile app, in that case for entering a mobile number. So a pattern language is a network of patterns that reference one another and work together to create a complete structure. While the phrase pattern language is not common in interactive interaction design, design systems or design language are commonly developed and used particularly by large corporations such as Airbnb, Salesforce, and Uber. A design system is a collection of core elements, reusable components, and guidelines for the visual and interactive design of a product or family of products. So basically, here the language that I was talking about, it is more powerful than a pattern or the sentence because it provides a complete language. Such an explanation is the Airbnb, where it has a consistent theme like a consistent book or a paragraph, or as a collections of sentences that form a paragraph, and or a collection of paragraph that forms a book that performs a one theme. So it was used by Airbnb, Salesforce, and Uber. In essence, it is a structured collection of patterns and associated components together with guidelines for use that provide a coherent and consistent user experience. Design systems may include other sets of guidelines such as brand guidelines and accessibility guidelines, apart from supporting consistency across products. Other advantages of design systems are that they reduce effort, support learning between designers, and increase cross-functional collaboration. Design language or system allow the reuse of larger chunks of design that simply user interface elements may be supported by an associated collection of software components called a framework. Other reusable design elements that are commonly produced and shared include user flows. For example, Overflow.io supports the production of playable user flow diagrams, while UXArchive.com contains a large number of reusable user flows. So it allows you to reuse a large chunk or large patterns than simply user interface elements. So that may be associated with a collection of software components called a framework, like Bootstrap. Other reusable design elements that are commonly produced and shared include user flows. So user flows is actually a user word design elements as well that could be included in this design language. For example, Overflow.io supports the production of playable user flow diagrams, while UXArchive.com contains a large number of reusable user flows. Therefore, in summary, a design system comprises a library of design patterns, rules, and a streamlined UX guidelines. The latter two are what give the otherwise lifeless pattern library logic and structure. Also, Fan Guy mentioned the relationship to design languages. So far, it seems like design system and design language are describing the same thing, maybe with a little bit more focus on business and brand identity in the latter case. So design language system is focused on a business side, but it's almost the same. A language is a format, unified system of meaning as a way to intelligibly communicate with users. So formal, unified system of meaning as a way to communicate or intelligibly communicate with others. It states that a successful, effective language needs clear and consistent rules and makes clear that as above. A simple pattern library or style guide is not enough to constitute a design language. Rather, you also need semantics, structures, and meanings behind the individual elements. So, a successful language should be clear, consistent rules, and makes clear that as above, simple pattern library or style guide is not enough to form a language, but you also need semantics, structures, and meanings behind the individual elements, or kind of like a dialogue analysis where words could mean a lot based on different interpretation. You want words that pack a lot of like meaning in those short words, but also unified and that others can actually understand it. So here's an example. The blank used in the blank helps to communicate this. Here, the first space is for design element. So the design element used, like line thickness, so the line thickness used in the uh, primary button helps to communicate important interactive elements. So an example, take a look at the floating action button file from Google Material Design. A simple pattern library would give you some code and maybe tell you which colors you're allowed to use. But only the fact that Google includes guidelines that very specifically tell you in which context to use the bottom, why and how truly makes it a part of a design system or language. Do's and don'ts. Design language pattern, component or library rules. Design language equals to pattern or component library plus rules plus semantics. Design system, pattern or component library plus rules plus semantics plus UX guidelines. But this is not 100% sure. Hence, the only definite conclusion I can draw is that when talking about design system or languages, it's extremely important to just make very clear what one's understanding of the concepts to avoid confusion and misunderstanding. So let's continue with this letter D in the next video. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video. Peace.